Welcome to a brand new episode of Business Talk here on businesstech.co.za. I'm your host, Michael Avery, and today we're exploring the future of banking. I think it's a topic that is evolving so quickly. It feels like the ink isn't even dry on yesterday's innovations before today's become obsolete. Well, joining me to shed light on the trends, the technologies, and the transformations shaping the future of banking is Bessy Mahopo, who is Chief Information Officer, CIO at Standard Bank CIB, with a focus on transformation programs. Her expertise is all about this particular area and what the future holds for banking. And hopefully we'll figure out if we still need physical wallets or if they're destined to join the fax machine in the land of forgotten tech. So, Bessy, great to have you on the show with us. The future, of banking, it's obviously one of these topics that's very close to Standard Bank CIB. What are some of the latest trends that you've identified in the industry, and how has this forced you to make changes to your systems to maintain your position as a technology leader?
Good afternoon, Michael, and good afternoon to your audience. Thank you for having me on the show. It's such a pleasure and an honor. So, maybe before I start with answering your question, I would like to bring forth a particular context so that I shape my answer my response in that manner. So, going back to basics, if you think about banking relationships, any banking relationship, the cornerstone becomes trust. So if you look at Standard Bank as well as anytime we are faced with change, we always go back to the identity of who we are so that we don't lose the crux of who we are as we service our clients. And as change comes, we don't lose that. So now the rise of digital, the spike in digital banking over the past decade is at an absolute high. So if you ask me, when you pick on the changes that face you, you need to make sure that you still remain relevant to your clients, but then pick the priorities or maybe prioritize the aspects that you believe will actually help you to streamline your internal services to clients, but also make sure that at least you are specific in terms of how you respond to the market. So the first thing that I would like to bring forth as a point in the aspects of change, we have actually went back and looked at our client relationships. How we do business in the market is something that we actually introduced a big change to. We used to focus on selling products, just pushing products up to the market, thinking for the client. So now the change that we've introduced, and I said over the past decade, was to make sure that we start going more to clients, we listen to our clients and very intentional about that. But we also make sure that, we understand our clients' businesses and we make sure that we understand what really matters to them, what their pain points are, so that when we tailor our solutions, we are so focused on making sure that we unlock more for clients, not just banking solutions, but everything that is, beyond banking as well. And secondly, I would like to say that there's also a balance, an optimum balance that we need to find in terms of making sure that as we deliver digital services, there's balance between physical and digital service distribution, because it's not the entire market or the entire economy that is actually ready for just the digital distribution of services. So we've done that a lot as a change, and we've introduced that. Equally, internally, we've taken a look on a number of aspects. One being our processes. We actually have a mantra that we call "War on Manual." We've started this over the past couple of years just to start automating some of the trivial services in the background, just to build in efficiencies in how we deliver to our clients, as in making it faster, quicker to respond. And equally, when we look at the systems, there's actually a lot that we've done. We've modernized how we think about architecture. There's the concept of microservices, how we integrate via APIs, as well as making sure that we're starting to move and migrate some of our key solutions into the cloud, because that's also the other foundation that we require for us to operate in the digital transformation wave that's upon us. And the last and the most important aspect, Michael, is the fact that, people are at the core of everything that we do. And I'm talking about our people, our employees, our talent. Our existence, our success is obviously linked to how we build, talent strategies that allow us to unlock what is out there and how we reimagine work. So people are always at the center of everything we do because we are who we are because of the talent that we have in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to unpack in that. But it's interesting. The language that you're using reminds me very much of almost startup language, where you think of the way entrepreneurs go to market and think about, well, what does the market need? What is the problem that I'm trying to solve for a future customer? Rather than saying, well, I've got a solution and the market will adapt to my solution. When you talk about really listening to your customers and saying, well, then how do we iterate? How do we solution for them? And that requires agility, to your point about moving into the cloud, to then design solutions that are fit for your client. So it all then connects together, and having, the people to be able to do that. Well, I mean, I think there's a maturity through an organization when you talk about digital, but certainly attracting the best talent in the world today. Most of the new entrants to the workforce are very digital native. So if you want to attract the best and brightest, you really got to be offering that pathway. There's lots of technology, and I know there's lots of buzzwords and AI and machine learning. And which are the technologies that you see playing a particularly significant role in shaping this future?
Yeah, Michael, as you say, there's many emerging technologies, if you ask me. But for the purposes of this discussion, I'm really going to focus on the top five that I believe will have a huge impact in the role of banking in the future. So the first one is quantum computing or nanocomputing. So if you think about this one, it actually accelerates everything that we do. So the power to process any of our banking services, in particular, nanocomputing as well as quantum computing, actually helps accelerate how we solution for our clients. It actually helps us accelerate the target client that we want, equally predicting solutions that the clients want before they even know that they want them. And lastly, I think, most importantly, everything is really centered around cloud computing. So if you don't have the right basis to allow yourself to operate or navigate the world of nano computing, etc., then you lose out. So which is why it's important that we start moving majority of our services into the cloud. The second one, it's also upon us. The era of visualization is here. Taking it back to about 10 years ago, we used to have physical tools to be able to do any transaction in banking. So now, if you think about today, there's less. I mean, physical cash is starting to diminish. There's the concept of blockchain, Bitcoin, you name it. The rise of visual cards. Like these days, you don't even necessarily need to have your physical card with you. So that
Yeah.
already tells you that the era of visualization is upon us. The third thing that I would like to talk about is really, our client data platforms. I always say data is king. You said it in the opening. So I always say whoever has the right insights as well as, valuable insights that unlocks a client wins the client. So with banking, that's what we want to do. So now these different platforms that I'm talking about, the client data platforms actually help us unlock client value in that, there's like the silos in banking. Like segment one would be doing one thing, and then segment three wouldn't know what segment one is doing. So making sure that we are intentional in how we put our data platforms together to make sure that as an enterprise we have unified databases that actually speaks to client. And that's a concept that we're just going to have to make sure that we put lots of energies on so that we stitch the data together to make sure that we sharpen how we respond to clients, how we enhance our acquisition as well as our retention strategies. So this is all centered on data. The fourth one, which is also now at home, is extended reality. If you think about extended reality, which is a combination of mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, this is largely to come through. This is likely to sort of like be prominent in the future of banking. What I mean by that is that, there's data that is often processed, but then as it comes through and it also connects to the human senses, this is another technology trend that is starting to emerge and is going to be upon us in the next couple of years. And one thing I always say is that you look at movies, current movies now, you click on your watch and then things are happening. You can manipulate data. Those things are actually here. And
Yeah.
the last one is really the human robots. They are upon
Wow.
us, the humanoid. Yeah. And thinking about banking, we actually have a lot of administrative tasks. So you might find that one robot could actually be taking over 5 or 20 people's functions because it's just admin. So the power that we have in the computing, the nano computing that I was talking about, is actually going to unlock all of that. And equally, all these emerging technologies, if you think about it, I always say everything as a service because these days you hear, so there's XaaS, as in
Yeah.
everything as a service, because
Yeah.
there's banking as a service, there's application as a service, there's data as a service. Everything is now as a service. So the basis of all of this is really machine learning as well as AI. So if we make sure that we focus on building the necessary foundation, I believe that we set ourselves better into navigating the digital wave.
Wow, I can't imagine a world, even though I've seen the Tesla humanoid robot Optimus, where we actually are serviced by these. But, that is the future. It tends to happen much quicker than sometimes we think. And just the other day, I saw Qatar announcing that you can get Starlink on most of its planes now. We're always on, we're always connected. And the bank being the kind of brain of the body economic needs to really be at the forefront of that. But banking obviously doesn't just exist in this vacuum. It's influenced by consumer trends, other innovations in other industries and sectors, and I think often of the smartphone and how that changed banking. Could you share some examples of maybe non-banking trends or technologies that you're seeing that you believe will have an indirect impact on how banking evolves?
Yeah, so one thing I always say is that we're actually facing a future that is marked by a fundamental restructuring for banking. So the global trends we're starting to see tells us that the bigger threats are actually coming from non-banking entities or industries. These different industries are actually your cross-industry platforms. Examples are Microsoft, Google, Amazon, PayPal, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, X, So if you think about it, in summary, I'll call it the metaverse. But if you look at all these cross industry platforms, they're actually more superior than banking because they own the client interactions. So they actually own those more than we do as banks. Because if you think about it, they have data about everyone. They know what you're doing, and which is why often people will say it's a bit spooky because you go into Instagram, something you were thinking about, or you actually spoke to somebody about, suddenly is presented to you. So it tells you that these cross-industry platforms are actually now more powerful, and actually they bring with them a vastly superior economic model. So the key question for us as banks is to say, how do we collaborate as well as partner with all these within these platforms to make sure that we also have a stake in these new emerging ecosystems, because that's where the world is going.
Does the bank become a platform in essence? I almost see, when I think of financial services, I think banks are actually uniquely positioned in their digital interactions with me as a customer are almost daily, versus say an insurance
Yeah.
company. I'll interact on an app if an insurance company has an app, as and when I need to claim, or maybe when I'm onboarding, or once a year when I'm changing something, but not daily the way I do with the bank. So I do think the way a bank is integrated into our daily lives, you are ideally positioned to pivot to become platforms.
Absolutely. So, again, if you think about banking, or maybe just let me start with unpacking platform. Platform is just, sort of like a place where consumers and producers of services meet to sort of like, to deliver on either services or receive services. And banking is actually well positioned for that. The challenge that we have is that we often are faced with the fact that we have lots of legacy technologies and we are not optimizing the way we use data, which is why we often sort of like seen as slow into catching sort of like the wave that is here. But if you ask me as well, the fintechs, there's the world of fintechs. We also have a lot of data about who our clients are, what they sell, so that we are able to connect. So that's why I'm saying the power of data, the client data platforms I was referring to earlier are really going to be prime in terms of how we use them to
Right.
monetize as well as unlock to value for our clients, for producers of service as well as consumers of service. So that is definitely true, but we need to really move fast and catch the wave.
Now, within this technology conversation, and we're chatting on a platform now. We become so much more socialized into conducting our work digitally, working from home, living at work, call it what you will. But I think it's rapidly changing how professionals manage their careers, and this in turn affects how they approach their finances. Well, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing in the workplace, and how do these then translate into the banking sector?
Yeah, so Michael, the profit margins are actually telling, and you can see they are declining for your traditional banking services. I'm talking the likes of lending. If you think about a couple of years ago, we used to live in a world where you buy a house, a very big house, and then you stay there, you finance your house, and as banks, we earn interest from that. You finance your car, and now the concept of pay as you use is here. People can work from anywhere. I only have to pay for Uber when I need to use it. Most of the time, you can work from the need to commute is less and less. There's actually a decline in birth rate as well, which means people are less likely. So this whole thing of globalization is upon us. So that's why I'm saying it's very important to reimagine the new value opportunities that banking needs to bring, because that's going to be key for survival. So that's where I believe that the financial sector is actually faced with a key restructure that changes everything that we do.
I think it's ripe for innovation, which is a very exciting time to be looking at the way we've done things and now the new opportunities, because the first movers in those spaces tend to be able to attract the largest reward as well. So I mean that's very exciting. But obviously all of this, I mean, does come with a layer of risk, of challenge, particularly in terms of security. And for banks, I mean, banks are so heavily and highly regulated and so, so dependent on trust. It really has to be at the forefront of how you approach all of this. How do you see banks counteracting the associated risks as criminals inevitably look to exploit these evolving systems?
Yeah. So, in anything, I always say that when you solve your problem, you go back to the foundation and the basics. So now bringing in security. If you look at the basic security principles, CIA, obviously we've extended now with authentication and non-repudiation. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, as well as non-repudiation and authentication will always remain the key principles in security. So now any solution that you build, if you make sure that you respond or maybe build controls to protect those principles of security, then you should be in a better place. And what do I mean by that? Whether it's your systems, if you're building your systems, if you apply those principles and make sure that there's controls that respond to those principles, you've sort of like covered your base. Equally for our clients, equally for our what do you call it, for our employees, internal users. So those are just the basics that you always need to apply. And as you said, banks have actually spent a lot of money to deploy solutions that protect sort of like the perimeter. We've got multiple layers of perimeters. We've got people that sit and actually look at the threats that are facing us as banks and try to, stop the attacks before they materialize internal to the bank. However, impersonation is a very big thing, which is the authentication aspect that I spoke about earlier. Authentication merely is what you are, who you are, and what you have. And traditionally, or maybe a couple of years ago, we used to use the passwords, what you know, what you have, or, those were the tools. But now, with the emerging technologies, we've actually enhanced security a lot, because now we talk in really complex ways in terms of how we introduce encryption with cryptography solutions. Quantum safe cryptographic solutions are here. And equally, we're using the highest form of security, which is biometric authentication, because nobody can actually, replay or sort of like reproduce your unique physical attributes, unless I know they cut your hand for your fingerprint to go and authenticate. So those are some of the things that actually say the emerging technologies and have actually helped us enhance security. But it doesn't mean that the fraudsters, the dark world is not busy thinking about ways. Which is why, if you look at the trends that we're looking from security at this point in time, they now hone in on the social engineering type of aspects. They will get information about you. They will still set it so that, and that's why ransomware, something that is, they're making it personal, because the external attacks are actually not working. They are colluding now, looking at internal ways to get to the same type of information. So if you look at the trend of security, it's a positive, but equally we shouldn't sit back and say, okay, the world of unethical hacking is actually sitting and relaxed. They're also finding ways. So we just have to continue working on this until we, it's just gonna be an evolution after evolution.
We can't rest on our laurels. And I just saw the other day, the social engineering aspect, someone who is quite famous and their face used with the promise of returns that were too good to be true. And so, what you see often online, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. But what they're doing is getting people to go and draw their own money and put it and deposit it somewhere else. And in that way, socially engineer the robbery. The robbers just don't wear balaclavas and come in the same way anymore in this digital world. And we really have to be hyper vigilant, and I think spend a lot on educating consumers, particularly vulnerable consumers. I mean, if you maybe retired, and how many people retire with enough money? The statistics say not enough. You are more vulnerable, even though someone may look and say, who would fall for that? They are vulnerable people. So we really have to be very vigilant. Just lastly, and I think a big theme, and ever since the financial sector charter years ago was introduced, has been, how do we bank the unbanked? There's got to be a huge opportunity to ensure greater financial inclusion in South Africa. How do you see technology playing a role to further this in the years to come?
Yeah. So if you're looking at this particular aspect, I want to say that the biggest inhibitor for the unbanked is two things, right? The first one is access to banking. The second one is the cost of banking. So now, I spoke earlier about the cross-industry platforms. So today in South Africa, I'd like to believe that 95 of the people, of the people in the country actually own smartphones. So as I was talking earlier about the cross industry platforms, all of them actually use these technologies, and they are integrated in the way of life. So those I really believe are going to become prime in how we unlock the unbanked solutions. I know that we've tried in the past, partnering with the likes of like the telecoms as well as regulators to do solutions like the cash sense, but that's not enough. If you look at cross-industry platforms, I believe that they're going to play a major role in the unbanked segment. And so the compliance, and again, from a banking point of view, compliance is going to play a big role, because we have to be ahead of the curve and make sure that, we build, the sort of like the boundaries in terms of what you are able to do, so that we avoid all these vulnerabilities like your anti-money laundering, etc., in that particular world. So learning about the potential of what these cross-industry platforms bring to us is something that is really going to be key in the future. So there's lots of things. There's WhatsApp scams now, and if you think about it, they also happen on all these cross-industry platforms. So that on its own says we need to stand up and learn so that we are able to respond in the right manner.
Well, if the future of banking is just half as exciting, a quarter of exciting as Bessy's insights, I think we're in for quite a ride. A big thank you, Bessy Mahopo, CIO at Standard Bank CIB. Great insights and thoughts on the trends and technologies driving the transformation of banking here on Business Talk. Take care.